Wow.
Welcome to the new space. Didn't we tell you guys something was coming?
Yes, and now it's here. It has arrived.
I think.
Don't look it directly into the light, though.
No,
Mike,
I know. I think in a second or two,
see.
the heater's going to turn off so that we won't have like this little rumbling that's going on in the background.
Okay.
But that's fine. We can talk through that. We can steam through it. How do you like the new setup?
This is great. I've always wanted the table, the seated at the table kind of setting, because lounging on the couch is just not my.
And now check this
vibe.
out. Oh, the heat went off. That's great.
Perfect timing.
Now you've got your own camera that you can look into.
Great.
I've got my own one that I can look into. Mm-hmm. So hopefully when we're talking together at the same time or arguing, we got that camera.
We don't argue.
No. We might argue about something. In episode 4, you got very heated about talking about how the government is not your parent.
Yeah.
You know, and talking about sex education in schools.
Yeah.
And you posted, I think, probably your most viral clip on your Instagram. I think it's your most played reel. Has over like 100,000 plays.
Oh, that's great.
Bunch of people shared it. It's insane. But when you were looking into the camera and you were going, the government is not your parent. The government is not your friend. I thought to myself yesterday, I was like, she's on some Judge Janine shit right there. Like, Judge Janine.
Gosh. No, she's crazy. Don't ever compare me to her.
I mean, put in the comments, do you think that Gina had a Judge Janine
No, the
moment?
answer is no. You can put the answer and the answer is no.
I think you 100% did.
I think she's got a few screws loose.
She seems like a crazy person.
Yeah. I don't say.
That's a prereq for any female Fox News host. I think you have to have a little bit of like a crazy moment at least once or twice in your career.
You have to have the crazy eyes.
Has Laura Ingraham kind of done that?
I don't know. I don't know much about her. I know that she's a pistol. I know that she's really good at her job. I mean, Candace, I think she still goes on her show regularly. I don't know, but I don't know much about Laura.
Candace has a not going crazy moment, but I say go crazy in a positive way. Probably like once or twice a week.
Yeah, because she's vicious in a way that nobody else is willing to be vicious.
Before we get into the podcast, I would like to say, subscribe. This channel, I'm doing great. The podcast is on Spotify and it's on Apple Podcasts. You can find it there. Button. We've gotten over 2,000 downloads of just the podcast audio alone, which is great.
That's really great.
We're trying to grow our YouTube channel so we can make some money because we don't have any sponsors or anything like that. But I would like to say there's an Instagram out there called Trad West, I believe. That's where I got this shirt.
Trad West?
Yeah, Son of God with the old like kind of crusading cross on it in the back.
Do they make women's stuff?
Yeah, I think you can get some women's stuff. I'll put a link down there. I think their Instagram handle is Trad West, but they're all about Mega Chad vibes.
That's cool.
Giga Chad vibes, but traditional vibes.
The Chads are gonna save the world.
Yes, Dan Bilzerian is not a guy that men should look up to. A guy that men should look up to is like a David Goggins or a strong man with a big family.
I love David Goggins. I just wish he had kids.
I was telling my wife, David Goggins might need to like take it down, but that's him. That's who he is.
Yeah,
so it works.
I know he's married, but
I just always feels like he's yelling at me. Stop yelling at me.
He is. Stay hard. He's so awesome, though. What I love about him is that he turns down. I've heard through the grapevine that he turns down so many different sponsorships and deals just because he's just not about it.
Hey Joel, let's hear some audio from you. How you doing today?
What's up, guys?
Oh, let's bring.
Oh, there he is. There's the man.
Go again.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Story.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah,
well, let's start off with a question. We can start off with a couple questions that we got from Instagram, and Joel can actually chime in on this one. Someone asked, "What is?" I might as well say her name just because, you know.
Give her a shout out.
Heather K. Hubbard on Instagram. Heather? What's up, Heather? Favorite things to do and places to eat in Nashville. We might as well start off with our favorite place. Your favorite place to eat?
Redheaded Stranger.
My favorite place to eat is Redheaded Stranger. Joel's favorite place to eat?
Redheaded Stranger.
Yeah,
so good. The Dr. Pepper hot sauce is so good. You got to get the refried bean and cheese taco.
That's the best one.
I think it's number 4.
They're white people tacos. They're not traditional tacos in any way, but they're the tortilla is very special because it's a flour tortilla, but the way that it is made on la plancha is very different. Mm-hmm. It's a smaller taco. It's greasy, but in a good grease kind of way.
Yeah.
So Redheaded Stranger, if you're in Nashville, it's in East Nashville. Go check that out.
Yeah, it's in the area where all the BLM signs are up. But
well, I mean, you're in Nashville anyway.
Yeah,
so.
but we go anyway. Also, the barbacoa taco is really good.
Barbacoa is my favorite.
Is it?
I believe that's the
Talk into the mic,
Number
Joel. Make
7.
love to the mic.
Number
think
7.
I'm on mic.
I believe it is. Another good place.
Take me to dinner.
My go-to healthy place is True Food Kitchen, but that's a chain, so it's not anything unique.
People like Ian Rose, if you've ever heard of Ian Rose.
Yeah, I like Ian Rose a lot. I
healthy
really
place.
like their acai bowls.
They had a great seasonal acai bowl.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, with pumpkin and all this stuff. It was great.
There's no good pizza in Nashville. Don't even bother.
No, there's not. But I have to say this. I usually am not into fine dining or any. I don't care if any place is Michelin star rated, but the best plate of pasta I've ever had in my entire life is an Italian place called Yolan. Yolan.
In Nashville?
In Nashville. I don't know.
Have you been to Italy?
No, I haven't been to Italy. But
Okay,
I actually
so
hear a lot of people who go to Italy tell me that the pasta there is really not that much better than what you can get here. I've heard that from many people. I don't know if it's true. I mean, I'm half Italian, so I doubt my family would say that, but
In the comments, if Gina is totally off base, out of line, let her know. Ooh,
I
there's a
never
little
am.
bug crawling on the table. Hit it. Bugs can't be inside. Kill it. If
Bye.
it's outside, it's fine. No, it's still moving.
I flicked it. Okay.
There you go. Things to do in Nashville. Go to Broadway if you're not from here. Go to Broadway. Go to some honky tonks. Though if you do come to Nashville, one of the best things ever is Honky Tonk Tuesday at the American Legion Post, either 81 or 91 on Tuesday nights. It's really good music. It's been kind of overtaken by hipsters over the last 5 years or so. I moved here 2 years ago, so I mean you've been to the Honky Tonk Tuesday,
Honky
right?
tonk.
Never been.
You've never been?
Never been.
Okay, well, maybe we'll go one day.
I would love to.
Okay, next question.
Wait, I'll say one more thing. A great thing to do in Nashville is the Percy Warner stairs. That hike, the Percy Warner Park hike, is great. Fantastic.
Nashville's actually Nashville and just outside of Nashville has some good hiking.
A lot of good nature and hiking.
A lot of good walks.
Yes, continue, please.
Okay, Steven Zimmer 01 wants our thoughts on AOC testing positive for COVID. I mean, who cares?
Who cares?
There's 300
Everyone's gonna
plus
get
million
COVID.
people. Everyone's going to get
Yeah,
it.
if you haven't gotten COVID already, it's just a matter of time. Enjoy.
She's still a fucking moron.
She is
But
one of the dumbest people, I think, to have her face on TV.
This is a very kind of broad question, but 3 Desert Bees wants to know, how are people in denial of things happening when it's so obvious? I wish you were a little bit more specific. I don't know what he means by
I don't know.
how are people in denial of things happening. I guess kind of maybe it's the kind of things like, how are people in denial about conspiracies that people like us will peddle and then they turn out to be true?
Oh, yeah, that.
I mean, maybe something along those lines.
Right.
I mean, people have biases in their minds when it comes to really anything. So I guess they have struggles trying to believe something that they just outwardly disagree with. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Based on bias.
All of the everything major in entertainment and media is controlled by the same people. So, of course, people are going to believe what they're being told because they're being given the same message from everywhere at the same time.
Well, yeah, I guess it's like that with climate change for me. Everybody on a certain side is telling me that the world's going to end any minute now if we don't, go to, zero carbon emissions, electric cars everywhere. And, just because a hurricane is a little bit stronger than it was last year, that is proof of it. And they would say that's you being in denial of obvious things that are happening in the world.
Of the science.
No, but yeah, I get what that question kind of means. But I wish he gave us a specific example.
Yeah.
Someone asked, will this plandemic ever end? I hate calling it a plandemic. Like that's kind of like
It's a bit of a cheesy word, isn't it?
it's just, that just goes on to the QAnon kind of route. Like, I don't care. Like the plandemic, the whole thing was planned. It may have been. I don't care anymore. It's never going to end.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's not anytime soon. This is going to be a thing for a long time, so we're going to have to live with it.
I don't think we should. I don't think we should live with it. I really don't think we should live with it. I think, as vocal as I am, I'm kind of past the point of being like, you know what, if you want to wear a mask, go ahead, wear a mask. No, you shouldn't wear a mask. And I'm probably going to tell you.
This is actually a really good point. Did you send me the clip of John Doyle saying this?
Yeah.
Yes. He made a great point. He said, and this relates to someone asked me this in my AMA on my Instagram. They said, how moderate do you think conservatives should be? No more moderation. Moderation is exactly what got us into this mess on so many different levels. And I thought about that clip that you sent me where John Doyle said, we need to get past this point. Well, I'm not going to wear my mask. I'm not going to take my vaccine. But if you want to, you can. No, we need to be like, nobody should be walking around in a mask. Nobody should be taking the shot.
100%.
Nobody should be listening to this. And we shouldn't be participating and complying.
Right.
And there's something about that is worth listening listening to.
I agree.
I like John Doyle. I'm a fan.
I like John Doyle as well. John, we'd love to have you on the show if you're ever in Nashville. We don't have that big of a following yet, and we won't piggyback off of yours. We would just like to have a conversation with you. Let's move on to something that Gina hasn't watched. I watched it, and I planned for this episode that she can watch it live, and we can just both kind of react to it, because I've only watched the first maybe 30 to 35 seconds of it. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to watch a Project Veritas music video called Oligarchy. You haven't seen this, right?
I have not seen it. I
Okay.
have not.
So I don't know how I came across this. I think it actually got suggested to me while I was in YouTube. But
is this recent? Very recently
this is,
released?
I think, a couple months ago, maybe in the summer of last year. But you're going to hear the audio. I haven't gone about like doing like the screen record off the laptop, so people are just going to have to watch it here, and then we'll put the link in the YouTube so you could see it. And again, this is more of my James O'Keefe. People are like, why you got to hate on James O'Keefe? I'm not hating on him. I'm just kind of laughing. And if I get a little bit of joy out of that, then that's fine.
People get really
you know what?
sensitive.
Because you're not doing anything with your life, so you have to hate on someone who's actually doing
real
real
stuff.
stuff.
They like to use that one.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Gina, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Never says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
Here's some bleeds, it
If
leads.
it bleeds, it leads. I think that's propaganda.
Twitter permanently suspended his account after he exposed hypocrisy and fraud at CNN.
Project Veritas, a very controversial.
He's fit.
Wait, James is pretty fit.
He's fit, yeah.
But I don't know what
he's-
that spin was.
Yeah.
Look at this girl. Look at the girl in the background right here.
Oh,
She's
are they
looking at the ass?
About to twerk?
I don't know. But here, okay. Well,
No. I mean, this guy lifts weights, so respect.
Promoting
The
misinformation.
Times reported that the footage from Project Veritas was part of the
According to Stanford researchers, coordinated disinformation
coordinated
campaign.
disinformation. They sued the New York Times for defamation. Project Veritas just won a major victory.
I'm sorry, but like these headlines that I'm seeing and the people talking about how, the victories that they're having, I think this totally emasculates it and just diminishes their work. Just this music video. It might be like celebratory, like, hey guys, like let's do this cool music video where we're gonna rip off Prince. I don't know. How do you feel about this 30 seconds into it?
Here's the thing about Project Veritas, and we've said this before. Their work is incredible. They do great work. But I do feel like there's something to just letting the work speak for itself.
Right.
There's really something to that. And I think that if your work really is great, which it is, you just don't have to advertise it like this. It's like what we talk about. If you have a high IQ, you're not going to talk about how high your IQ is all the time.
For me, I'm just going to call them Project Vanity Toss. That's what I think it is. I think it's just pure vanity. Okay, here, let's watch at least a minute of this and we can talk while it's playing.
Come to you and offer you $100 million. You're not going to settle?
So tell them to go to hell.
I just can't believe that my face is on TV. Oligarchy, am I left or right? M-O-G-O-E.
The girls are pretty.
Was that Isabel O'Reilly?
Oh, wait, was it? I don't know.
I think that's her.
James O'Keefe is suing Twitter for defamation.
Project Veritas taken down because they confronted a Facebook executive.
Fuck Dan Crenshaw.
A video like that
Yeah.
would be due to a doxing concern.
I can show you a video of CNN doing the exact same thing.
Who colored this video?
It's not good.
No, but it's just his face is very... Joel, do you see that?
Washed out.
No, why is his face so brown?
It looks really bad, but in a good way.
made factual statements about our client that are false.
Oligarchy, Twitter, CNN, is working with Dorsey.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. The cutoff t-shirts look good.
Yeah.
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 I think so. On the girls anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want
I think that is Isabel O'Reilly.
Oligarchy, make believe. Was that what you wanted them to see?
Many good-looking people.
Oligarchy, do you bring lies? Does the bucket
James O'Keefe, who I think is a despicable person.
The judge said, and your reporters interject their opinion. Stands to reason you should inform your
News articles.
New York Times ripping over themselves. Now he's going to be suing Twitter.
Another defamation lawsuit, this time against fake news DMA.
Do I have faith in truth? Does truth have faith?
But all of this fits the Project Veritas
Promoting misinformation.
Some people want lies instead
Who's the girl that you say you think it is?
Isabella Riley. She was just on Slightly
Can
Offensive.
she dance?
I don't know. She's very attractive.
I'm not gonna.
Project
Okay.
Veritas, a conservative
Very pretty.
activist organization.
Polling does not decide the truth.
Hey guys, also as a thing, if you're going to be using a sledgehammer and breaking apart televisions, you can't see it just because there's some text behind it, but he's wearing loafers, and I wouldn't really suggest doing that.
Oh, he's wearing loafers.
Yeah.
Where are his safety glasses when he's smashing
He's wearing glasses.
What? Okay, hold on. I just have I have a
So
question.
it's done. It's
Why?
done.
Why?
Why what?
Why?
Why that?
Yeah. It's
I
a
don't
genuine
know.
question. I'm wondering. I'm not hating on why. What is it? Was it released with a particular project? Was it
I'm gonna tell you.
Why?
I'm gonna tell you what a very good friend of ours said about this, because I sent it to him, and it's our very good friend who named this show, who we
Love him.
who we edited his name.
He's just a fantastic human.
What he said was, conservatives have confused a dubstep beat, hideous choreography, and cringe propaganda with art. It's a tale as old as time. Conservative pop culture is nothing but bad propaganda wrapped in cheap production values.
He always nails it on the head.
There's more.
Oh, great.
In the words of the great El Maestro, your art must be of the highest caliber to confront the prevailing dogmas of a society. For if it's not, you become an accomplice to the very dogma you claim to oppose. That's a quote. Conservatives are digging their own grave. This quote-unquote music video is exhibit A, B, C, and D.
We need to give him a name so that we can refer to him on the show without revealing his identity. We'll think of it later. But he just always gets it right, and he's right again.
I thanked him for having access to his dementia, just being able to talk to him. And dementia is not like he's slowly losing brain function, but dementia is another word for his thoughts.
Right?
Basically.
Yeah. He always has good thoughts on what's happening, and it's like we talk about all the time. Conservatives, the way that they think about culture and the way that they approach culture is 9.9 times out of 10 wrong. That's why we deserve to lose. We just don't get it. I genuinely want to know why. And I think that's actually a good question. Why is a question that we should be asking when we're producing things like this.
When I first heard the Let's Go Brandon song, the one that we listened to either last week or the week before, what I thought was if there was a music video, what would be cool about it if they did. Do you remember, does Joel know? What was the music video with Kanye West and Jay-Z where they sampled the Otis Redding song and they just drive around in circles?
Joel's going to have to answer that one.
Yeah,
I did listen to Kanye on the way here.
Jesus. What song is that? Really good. Some girls, they just don't get it.
Look it up. You have a laptop in front of you.
Yes, I do, but I don't want to I don't want to play it or do anything that would get it take it down. Right on time.
This is the first train that I believe we've
had, right?
That's
can you look up Watch the Throne, Jay-Z and Kanye track listing and just read me off the tracks that are on it? This is just going to bother me if I don't know.
No Church in the Wild?
No.
Gotta Have It?
No.
There's a word I can't say.
It's not In Paris, no.
Okay. Gotta Have It?
No.
That's my...
No.
Who Gonna Stop Me?
No.
Made in America?
No.
Well, that's 11. Well, that's not actually all.
I love that. That's great. We'll keep that in the podcast, and now we know that probably 11 o'clock on Wednesdays is no good.
Wow. Welcome to Tennessee.
Well, it's literally passing right behind you.
It's
That's
right
the
behind
problem.
me. Mm-hmm. It's a...
What are some of the other ones? God darn it. Hold on. Welcome to our podcast.
I still want to know why this video was released.
Otis, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine if Let's Go Brandon with its connection with NASCAR and whoever the rapper was that did it, if they did something like this where it was just kind of driving around like that, that would be cool, because that is, a nod to culture. That would have been a good pop culture reference. Look, I mean, the big American flags in the background, like it would have been perfect. But then you have this James O'Keefe video, which is it doesn't reference anything. It's just like I said, it's like a look at me kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm getting this energy. Like I just want to draw attention to myself and the excellent work that I've done, and show off my cool dance moves too.
Here's a thought that I have over the weekend. Moving on from that, and drop us, some comments and with your interpretation or with your opinions on what that video was. But been having a lot of back and forths with people on social media, which responds by some of the comments that I had on Project Veritas stuff. And what is obvious, and everybody knows that 99.9% of the time that people won't say this stuff to your face in back and forths in comments or in DMs. Like they'll never say it to your face. And I had a thought to myself. I was like, I wish there was a way where, on social media, you could just challenge someone to a physical fight. Because Gavin McInnes said fighting solves everything. And I know he's had his disagreements with, people like Joe Rogan about that. And, someone like Joe Rogan would know. And something that you said either last week or a couple weeks ago when you said, I've done martial arts most of my young adult life, your husband and you, and fighting and martial arts is a way of having peace with other people. Because it's almost like carrying a gun. You carry the gun because you never want to have to use it. You know what I mean? But you have it so that if you need to use it, you have it. But it's just like, I feel that, if people get punched in the face, they'd probably be a little bit more careful about how they talk to each other. But also, you shouldn't have to fight someone based on political beliefs or having a back and forth discussion about policy or anything like that. But going back to it, I really do think people need to be punched in the face. So I wish there was like this third-party app that you can go from Instagram, challenge someone to a duel or to a fight or whatever, and then you set it up between the two of you. And you have your, you have your disagreement there physically, and whoever wins says, you want to keep going, we can keep going, but you're not allowed to comment about anything. Like you're almost barred from Instagram now.
Right.
Because you can't back up your shit. There is nothing more sad, I think, than someone who talks a lot of shit, gets called on it or challenged to it. What the fuck is that?
Those are brakes on the train.
God, fuck.
It'll go
Welcome
away.
to Tennessee, the trains.
They're doing work on the tracks.
This just sucks. It sucks. But anyway, someone who
it's authentic.
Someone
Mike.
who's called out someone who is called out on their bullshit is challenged and then backs down. That means you absolutely have no principles. You don't believe in what you say. So, if someone accepted a challenge to a fight, I almost want to fight. I don't care if I don't care if I lose. I don't care if I get beat up.
Of course you want to fight because you're a man. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to say about this. And from the surface, this sounds like a silly conversation that is just boys talking about fighting. No, I think there's a lot of real issues here that are worth discussing. Men naturally, okay, obviously we don't play this game of men or women or men. Men and women are totally different, completely differently wired. And men, most of the time, your principles and your values and your beliefs are somehow intricately, inherently tied to physicality and to physical aggression, right? So men are designed to be much more aggressive. We know this about men from not only the existence of men across the earth for however many years, but from decades and decades of research that Jordan Peterson also talks about a lot when he talks about differences between men and women. I actually think it's a really good thing for men to fight. I think all men should learn how to fight. I think it's a really great way to generate peace in their life. It's a really great way to generate discipline, and for them to actually be more in touch with their gentle side, right? Yeah. In order to fight. So there's something interesting here. I actually think a lot about the book and the movie Fight Club. Yeah. Why did these men want to be in Fight Club? Because they felt that the way that modern society was set up, they were not able to express things that they were feeling and function in modern society in a way that was fulfilling and meaningful, right? So what they found in Fight Club was a true, deep sense of meaning. And they found that meaning through physical, aggressive camaraderie with other men. Fighting, that's how they found it. They felt something so deeply that they never felt before because they felt dead inside in modern society. And I think there's something really interesting to that because in many ways, men are designed to fight. You guys are made to be physically aggressive, and there's nothing inherently wrong with aggression. When aggression becomes dangerous is when it has been bottled up for so long. And that's what true toxic masculinity is when you have like soy boys. Soy boys are actually, they are the definition of toxic masculinity.
Agreed.
Like male feminists saying that you're pro-abortion because I care about women. No, that is toxic masculinity because you have spent so many years suppressing your aggression over and over and over again. I think there's actually something really good to be said about men having an outlet to fight and having an outlet for their aggression.
I also have, I'm going to kind of flip-flop on my own position too. Because I know that, one of the most dangerous people in the world is a quiet guy.
Yes.
Someone who's not loud.
Yes.
Someone who's not brash. You know what I mean? That's always, in a bar, any fight that I've ever seen, the guy who talks the most shit is usually the guy who gets knocked out.
The loudest man in the room always has the most to prove.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So in that way, I'm kind of like, why am I even getting myself into these situations where I know it's just going to be a useless back and forth? And what made me realize that is, have you seen the movie The Patriot?
Of course.
Yes. Great movie. Mel Gibson, Revolutionary War, plays a guy named Benjamin Martin, who's based on a real guy, I guess, called the Ghost during the French and Indian War. And the movie takes place in South Carolina, and Benjamin Martin gets called to, I guess, the South Carolina Assembly because they are going to vote on a levy to be raised for an army, for soldiers to, join the revolution. And Benjamin Martin is basically giving his reasons about why he doesn't want to go to war. And people are saying, the great Benjamin Martin, who's the hero at Fort Wilderness, why wouldn't you want to go to war? And, people are bringing up, we've got a tyrant 3,000 miles away. And he has this great quote that he's like, why would I trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? Mm-hmm. Which is really, really interesting. And he's talking about how, power hungry politicians or people, how when they get power, they rarely want to let go of it. But he said something in response to something that someone said. Someone said, Mr. Martin, where are your principles? And Mel Gibson, as Benjamin Martin says, he says, I'm a parent. I haven't the luxury of principles. And I stopped and I paused the movie and I said to myself, now that I have kids, nothing else is really worth the energy or the attention if it doesn't involve my kids.
Right.
So I said, the point of getting into an argument on Instagram with some stranger who doesn't even have a picture in his profile and who has, 1 follower, it's not worth it. I don't even think it's worth it with someone who has 1 million followers. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that I'm going to stop making fun of James O'Keefe, but what I'm saying is that I think there are more important things to do with doing these back and forths on Instagram when you can't challenge someone to his or her face, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that ties into any, inherent idea of masculinity more than just with anybody. How important are your principles?
Because
and then when you have kids.
I know a lot of
going
men.
to annoy the shit out of me.
Mike,
I'm trying to find like a
zen. You brought it up.
Keep going, man. You just got to feel it.
I didn't even notice it until you brought it up. I bet you the listeners wouldn't have even noticed it until you brought it up.
Sorry, listeners.
I will say this about black belts, because I've encountered quite a few black belts over the last few years of my life.
But not in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a second degree black belt in Taekwondo. Not that I meant anything.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's cool.
That's the normal reaction to that. The goal would be to get on to Joe Rogan and talk to him about Taekwondo because he's a black belt in Taekwondo too. So
I didn't know
we would
that.
have that in common. Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah. He was training to be in the Olympics to do in Taekwondo.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. But one common denominator I always notice about jiu-jitsu black belts amongst the men is that they are the sweetest, most gentle, usually quiet guys. So for example, my husband, he doesn't say much. He's pretty quiet, and very gentle spirited. And I know a lot of black belt men who are, I don't know why, but they just always have daughters. They just, because I think men like that they're wired to have daughters because they are so in tune with their gentle side. So I asked a friend once, a good friend of mine who was a training buddy of mine, he was given his brown belt by Jake Shields in San Francisco. And I asked him once, I said, I've just noticed that a lot of the black belts in jiu-jitsu are really gentle-spirited men, and they're great husbands and devoted fathers. And I said, why is that, Josh? And he said, because to truly connect with the brutality of the sport and the aggression of masculinity, you must know the other side. So if you want to be a successful black belt and a successful fighter, you have to tap into this, not extreme, but a really intense level of brutality, and you can't live in that space forever.
Yeah.
You must know the other side. You have to know what it means to be gentle and to be kind. And we were also talking about how the more that men are in tune with their aggression and they have a very healthy outlet for their aggression, the more that they're able to be kind and gentle and sweet. And so a lot of the guys in the gym where we used to train at Half Gracie in San Francisco, they would tell me that they had very troubled teenage years. They were getting into a lot of fights, getting into drugs, drinking. Some of them were even involved in gang violence. And the second that they came into the academy and started practicing jiu-jitsu, they never, ever, ever had a fight ever again outside of the academy. In fact, my husband's academy where he started training in Brazil, I believe it was High and Gracie, if you have a fight outside of the academy, you're never allowed back in.
Yeah,
you're never allowed back in.
That's what he was telling me.
Yeah,
he was telling me that.
Never, ever, ever. And that's just how it is. And so I actually think this is why I hate it when people have this perception that martial arts is violent. It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It's the very thing that renders peace.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And going back to what you're saying about the black belts that you know, who I train with as far as firearms, a former Navy SEAL sniper, my buddy Josh, and he's just like the quietest guy, nicest guy. You wouldn't get that at all. You wouldn't
Unassuming.
know. And my other, probably my better friends since I moved to Nashville, my buddy is an active duty Green Beret. And again, it's just like these guys are teddy bears. You wouldn't, you wouldn't know. I mean, you do see some of those guys who are just big and tough and you kind of like, you avoid them or whatever. But these two guys, you just want to be their friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because they had this sort of outward happiness.
Same with Jocko Willink. When I met Jocko, he's a total teddy bear.
Yeah.
And
well, I think these guys probably know how to release their stress. Like I was telling Adriano, your husband, I've had to learn, and I'm still learning patience when it comes to my daughter. And it's funny, when I found out I was having a daughter, one friend said to me, the universe is giving you what you deserve. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, you almost need a daughter because you're going to learn so many things about yourself.
That's actually what I told myself, because I've always wanted 2 sons, and I know that God's going to give me 2 girls. I mean, I already have a daughter. I know he's going to give me a second one if we,
Well, a medium told me we were going to have another girl.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just sure that we're going to have another girl because I'm just, I don't know. I have a little bit more masculine energy than most women do. And so I've always wanted a son that I could just mold into this warrior, just an athlete, you know,
what I was going to
push him and push him and push him. But now I have a daughter, and
what
I
was
going
to tell you was when I was saying to Adriano, I was like, Adriano's probably extremely patient as a dad, right? Like I'm sure if your daughter is like having a fit, endlessly crying, does he seem outwardly frustrated?
No,
or
he's not
the
agitated. No,
that's how I am, and it's very hard because my wife is like, you're the calmest guy who never appears to have any sort of problems. You're just kind of like, when we got married, she wrote a letter and we described how we felt our partner like made us feel. And Carly described me as a human Xanax, just basically like he can calm me down. He never gets frustrated or upset. And then when I didn't know how to deal with like that sort of pressure and that sort of, what do they call it? Just total sound overwhelming of a baby crying. Yeah. And I don't respond to that well. And I feel like I get impatient and aggressive. And I said to Adriana, I'm like, I bet you're very, very calm with your daughter. And assuming, being a black belt in jiu-jitsu, that the way he deals with pressure is completely different from the way that I deal with it. He's dealing with it on a daily basis and he's being physical with it. So when he's not doing what he does, he's probably at the peak calmest probably anybody can be.
Yeah. So the way that Joe Rogan describes jiu-jitsu is that he calls it high-level problem solving with dire consequences. And I think that's the best way to describe it, because at any point, if you could have your arm broken, you could be choked, you could die, and yet you have to somehow find a place where you're able to problem solve. human chess is another way to describe jiu-jitsu, but I don't think it really even begins to scratch at the surface. I think the way that Joe Rogan describes it is perfect.
Can you say what how does he describe it?
He
again?
describes it as high-level problem solving with dire consequences.
I like that.
With dire physical consequences, and it's true.
The chess analogy was a little bit easier for me to understand.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're in you know, you've gone to one class, but and I'm only a white belt. I've only been training for like a year and a half, but you're just in this situation where the cortisol in the body just rises. Because here's the thing, your body does not know the difference between sparring and actual fighting.
So wait, is it adrenaline or what's the difference between like adrenaline and cortisol?
So cortisol is the stress hormone. I mean, that's a good question exactly how they're different, but the adrenaline obviously rises in the body, but your nervous system doesn't know the difference. Your nervous system thinks that you're about to be choked to death.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you have to find...
Even in a training situation.
Like if you're actually sparring, so a general class goes like this, like you warm up and then you go through technique and then you have usually about 30 minutes of sparring and you spar with different people and it's usually 5 or 6 minute rounds. That's a long time. 5 or 6 minutes is a really, really long time.
Oh yeah, well I wrestled in high school and I believe they were 3 3-minute rounds if I'm remembering correctly, or if they were 3 5-minute rounds. I can't remember. But when I first started, I was like, oh, a 5-minute round, like that's that's easy. And then 30 seconds into the round, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Or at least I was. Like I wasn't really that physically fit even back then, but even now it's just I was watching the guys free mat or what do they call it? Open mat. And just doing these, Adriana was like upping the time. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do that.
And get this, at the major tournaments, the black belts, their rounds are 10 minutes long.
How many rounds do they have? Is it just until?
Well, it's just one, you know, it's just one fight. And then obviously like you move up in the brackets, but one fight is 10 minutes long for black belts in tournaments. That's a really long time.
Jeez.
Huge.
I want to get back into it. It's just, the schedule with the daughter is tapping into it because.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten back into it since before I was pregnant because obviously you can't fight when you're pregnant.
I didn't know that this episode was going to go here. I think we spent probably the majority of the time talking about Brazilian
I love
jiu-jitsu.
this topic.
I really
love
do
talking
too.
about it. I can't stress enough. If you have a son, if you have boys at home, I hear so many parents tell me that it really helps with boys' behavioral problems.
Yeah.
Because think about the traditional classroom setting for 99% of kids in America today. You have these young boys sitting down in a lecture style in a classroom, staring at the chalkboard and
Distractions
a teacher for 8
everywhere.
hours.
Yeah,
and it's like, what young boy do you know learns from 8 hours of sitting?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. So then you have all these issues that come up and then they diagnose it as ADHD and then they need to give them Ritalin and Adderall. When a lot of times the problem is that we're just not giving our boys what they need.
It's fixed by a sport. It's fixed by a science. It's fixed by just being outside.
Yeah,
a
being
hobby.
outside.
My dad, there was this book that my dad always talks about this award-winning teacher in New York City who, I don't know if it was 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, but this guy would win teaching award after teaching award. And what he would do is he would set up at the beginning of a semester, and this wasn't, recently, this was maybe 50s or 60s. He would set up apprenticeships for each student for the whole semester, send them out, and then they would come back and talk about what they learned. And I mean, the rate at which these kids developed completely outpaced the kids who were just sitting in a room for 8 hours.
Yeah,
and I wish that we can really bring that sort of teaching, whether it is like Montessori or whatever the new free range kind of education that's happening now. But that's for Taekwondo. For me, what it was, the martial art was I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and I was begging my parents. That's what I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that. And I think with Taekwondo, God bless my dad. Like the dude worked 12 hours a day, but would still find time to like take me after school. My mom the same way, and drop me off at the gym. Oh, I don't even know if we don't call it a dojo, wherever it was, Korean. Do you know what we call it? I remember Sababnim, teacher, Sababnim or professor.
Okay.
Do you speak Korean?
No.
God damn it.
I can say like
awful
5
Korean.
things.
잘
먹었습니다.
감사합니다.
Thank you, I ate well. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can count. I can count. But anyway, I remember excelling pretty quickly. I think it was about by the time I was 12 or 13. I think it was black belt, like first.
Yeah.
And at one point teaching adults, which was kind of weird.
Wow.
Yeah. I wasn't on a payroll or anything like that, but I would help lead classes, and I would go to, a 25-year-old dude who was throwing out a sidekick, and I'd go and correct and reposition
and
stuff like that. Yeah,
That's
I would really remember that. And sparring was something that In Taekwondo, it can be a focus, but where I went wasn't really that big of a focus. So sparring, I actually treated it more like boxing. But the forms were the big thing. So in Taekwondo, forms are just these basic. They are, what can I call them? They are these, I guess, little segments where you can throw them to music, but it's just basically choreographed, kicks, punches,
like sequences.
Movements, sequences. Yeah.
Okay.
But then as you progress and go through them, you can really choreograph them. So my dad and I, we would watch fight movies, and we would kind of take pieces from this movie, and we'd put together like a presentation. It was really fun. I kind of missed doing it. And at our high school, for the first 2 years of gym, the boys had to do 2 years of Taekwondo at our high school. And I was the idiot that opened his mouth when the teacher was like, "Has anyone done this before?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Okay." And all the kids were like, "You fucking, what a loser."
What a loser.
What a loser. Anyway, I think martial arts are extremely important.
Yeah, but going back to the original question, I think maybe men should fight it out when they disagree. I think it might actually be a better solution than a lot of the things that we're seeing today.
I've been incredibly aggressive with people online, and some of those interactions have turned out to be positive, where I'm friendly with these guys now.
Really?
Like, oh yeah. There was one disagreement where I had maybe 10 years ago on Tumblr with somebody. We were back and forth. He lived in England, and I was like, "I'm coming to England." And not specifically for you, but when I got there, it just, we resolved it online. And he was like, "Man, anytime you come to England, like, let's meet up. I'm in Manchester." And I got to Manchester. We met and hung out. We've done that twice.
No way.
Yeah, and it's awesome. It's just like those, friends in Canada, friends in the States who I disagree with on a everyday basis, but there's something that connects us where we can get past those differences and talk. With one friend, it's about guns. With another friend, it's about vintage menswear. So, I mean, if you have a disagreement on policy or on culture or whatever, it's something, you have to find something within the two of you that kind of ties you together. I think that's probably the best way to resolve any situation. But if you just have some guy just yelling at you, the problem was with these guys would be like, "Oh, you wear guns on your shirts and you go shoot guns, so you must be a real man." And it's just like, dude. Like,
or you must be a Republican.
It's just like, you don't know anything about me other than, the shirt that I was wearing on a Tuesday. And yet you're making all these assumptions about me. And those guys are usually private. Every online argument that I've had, the vast majority of those people have been private accounts.
And no avatar.
No avatar.
Because
so
they're fat and ugly.
You don't know anything about them.
Right.
So it's easy for them to say whatever they want about you.
Yeah.
And I just think it brings the conversation to such a low level now that it's not even worth it for me. I'm not going to pursue it anymore.
All right. What about interracial marriage?
What about interracial marriage? Good segue. Did we get asked that question on, I think, one of our stickers?
I forgot how we even decided to talk about this.
I think someone said talk about interracial marriage.
Okay, maybe they did. We were going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about immigration. There's just a couple things that I want to make sure that I have locked in before we talk about immigration. But interracial marriage is interesting.
It's very weird because I think we're both coming at this from a subjective point of view. But we can do both because we both come from interracial marriages. We're both products of mixed marriages.
In interracial marriages.
My wife's white. I'm half white. So does that technically still count? I bet
I don't know if mine counts. My husband and I are both half Asian, half Italian. I'm half Korean. He's half Japanese.
So both of you make up a full Asian and a full Italian. European. Yeah.
Yes.
So kind of. I mean, if I were to look at you two, I don't know on optics if I would be like they're in an interracial marriage. Honestly, I'd be like they're both Asian.
We look the same.
Yeah.
We look the same. We almost look related.
Yeah, my wife and I, we both have red hair.
You do.
Two white people.
Yeah. So what's funny, I guess this will get us into the conversation. When I was young, my mom always told me, and it used to infuriate me, especially when I was woke, she would say, "Marry your own kind."
Yeah.
She would say, "Gina, just marry your own kind."
And this is obviously after she met your father.
Yeah.
So what was the perspective on that? Did you ever ask her to elaborate?
These are great. This is a great question. So my parents are still very happily married to this day. They are soulmates. They believe they're soulmates, and they are. And their marriage is great now. But there were many times where it was extremely difficult. So my dad was stationed in Korea, met my mom on a tennis court, and I'll tell the very short story of it. he was so in love with my mom, and she could speak English because all of the Korean kids were taught to speak English. But American soldiers had such a terrible reputation of how they used and abused Korean women. So my grandmother put out a restraining order against my dad.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Is this while they were dating or even before?
Well, before, because she didn't want them to be involved at all.
Gotcha.
My parents communicated secretly through written letters.
Really?
Yeah, and my mom's friend had to arrange a meeting for them to meet. And my mom said she remembers standing on a hill and waiting for him and thinking he wasn't going to come. And all of a sudden, he's walking up this hill. My mom said she always thought he was so fascinating because my dad, full-blooded Italian, he's got dark hair but bright blue eyes.
Okay.
He got the blue eyes from my grandma, his mom. And so my mom had never seen a man that had dark features but bright blue eyes. She said it almost freaked her out when she first met him. So anyway, they communicated through secret letters, and my grandmother was hell bent on not having them together at all. And my grandmother was well connected with everybody in town and had the police like make sure that he wasn't coming near my mom. But they got married. My grandmother was so concerned that my dad would just use and abuse my mom that they weren't allowed to sleep in the same room until 5 days after they were married.
Wow. And
the only reason that it was 5 days after was because my grandmother had friends over to the house, and, like the whole family, intergenerational living, they all lived together. And my dad was late for work. And the other Haimanis, the other grandmas, were asking my mom, why didn't you wake up your husband to go to work on time? And she said that they're not allowed to be sleep in the same room. And all of my grandma's friends are like, are you crazy? This man has stuck around for this long and you're still not letting them sleep in the same room, and he's still here. And so they lectured my grandmother, and then finally she let them.
So question, does your grandmother, did she have other kids apart from your mom?
Yeah, so my mom is the middle child of 3.
And are they all married to other Koreans?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, for sure.
The family makeup in my family is my mom, one brother, and like 4 or 5 other sisters. There are a couple sisters that she doesn't talk to. And Latin women are, when they decide they're not speaking to anybody anymore, they don't.
Forever.
Yes, it's forever.
It's a forever thing.
But so my mom married my dad. My dad's, white of like a Eastern European descent. Her sister, my tia, she married a black man. And then my uncle married a French Canadian woman. So it's like, so those 3 siblings are all in like interracial marriages for the most part. I don't really know the makeup of the other ones just because I don't, they're basically, they don't exist to me for the most part. But then on my dad's side of the family, everybody married a white person. So especially like, the Jews who grew up in New York, when they went to LA, those people married white people. So the family dynamic on my mother's side is just, it's always been mixed from my point of view. So I grew up with black and Hispanic cousins, black cousins. We were the only gringos in the family. But I don't know. I never really asked. What I understand from both sides is that actually we can pull this up because there is there's this from a Gallup poll. U.S. approval of interracial marriages at a new high of 94%. And I could just read this little thing. The story highlights approval was at 4% in 1958 when Gallup first polled on the question. The racial gap in approval of interracial marriage is nearly closed. Age and regional gaps in approval have also shrunk. So 94% of U.S. adults now approve of marriages between black people and white people, up from 87% in the prior reading from 2013. The current figure marks a new high in Gallup's trend, which spans more than 6 decades. Just 4% approved when Gallup first asked the question in 1958. And I mean, I don't have a problem with interracial marriage, though I can understand from a cultural point of view is that it would make sense and it would seem almost a little bit easier to marry within one's ethnicity, within one's own culture, because you have that cohesiveness as far as like raising a family. When you have 2 different cultures marrying each other, how do you raise your kids under which culture, which values, what I mean? Like it makes things a little bit more complicated. And not to say that like a marriage is going to fail just because there are 2 different cultures or 2 different ethnicities, but I get it. I get why.
Can you look up the rate of divorce amongst interracial marriages? Because this is something that I'm curious about. Because I know that Nick Fuentes, for example, is opposed to interracial marriage, but I don't know why. I'm curious to hear his reasoning.
So this is Pew Research. An analysis conducted a decade ago found that 10 years after they married, interracial couples had a 41% chance of separation or divorce compared with a 31% chance among couples who married within their race.
Okay, so I want to...
That's from 1995.
Let's talk about this for a second. So when I was thinking about why people like Nick Fuentes are opposed to interracial marriage, I thought about, I'm curious about what the success rate of these marriages are, right? Because objectively, it is more difficult. It is more difficult to have an interracial marriage last a long time. My parents are certainly an anomaly. I mean, like I said, they're still very happily married, but especially in the first 5 to 10 years, it was very, very difficult. There were many times where my mom threatened and thought about leaving because it was so difficult to have the cultures merge, right?
Yeah.
the sound. But you know, my parents made it and they did well, but it's so difficult because when you have a huge difference in values and in beliefs and in your view of the world, in many cases that can collapse. So that being said, I thought about, what if the success rate is lower in interracial marriages? So maybe with people who are opposed to interracial marriage, so what's the core foundation of America, right? It's the nuclear family. We need strong nuclear families. We need strong marriages in order to have a well-functioning, economically successful society. So if we want that to happen, we need to encourage that people have the highest likelihood of success in a marriage. So I was thinking, maybe that is one of the reasons why someone like Nick Fuentes would be against interracial marriage, because it, in many cases, will set people up for failure when what we need are successful marriages for society.
That's what the Professor Camus Johnson or Dr. Camus Johnson, who I sent to you?
Umar something?
Umar, right. What was his name?
Dr. Umar something.
Umar Johnson, maybe.
Well, his reasoning was a little bit different because his reasoning was, I mean, we can play the clip too. He says that with interracial marriages, talking specifically about black interracial marriages, he uses Naomi Osaka as an example.
Right.
He says that when you have interracial marriages, when you have a black or a black husband or a wife, that child will almost inevitably end up identifying as the race that is not black. And he uses Naomi Osaka as an example, which I think is a stupid example because look at Barack Obama.
Are you totally against interracial relationships?
I am totally against it, and I want to make sure you understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Cut it out, Envy. Cut it out, Envy.
Don't do that, Envy. I'm going to be having a serious conversation.
We have a name for it.
We
have a name for it. The Snow Bunny Crisis.
Okay.
I am against the Snow Bunny Crisis. And I want your white listeners to understand. Because people be trying to say stuff like, he's the Black Hitler. I'm not the Black Hitler. I am in no way interested in hurting or harming the life of any human, white, Asian, Chinese. I believe in respecting everybody. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm against interracial marriage, Envy and Charlemagne, is because marriage is an economic contract. It's an economic contract. Most women do not marry down in status. They marry up. And if you don't believe me, show me a rich white woman married to a broke-ass black man. Have you ever seen a rich white woman marry a broke-ass black man? No, you have not, and you never will. Because marriage ain't about love, it's not colorblind, and it is totally economic. So if marriage is an economic unification and a contract, how can we, who don't have enough already, give so much to the white woman and to white people who have already taken too much when we got all these black women out here who will never get married?
I have a question about this, which it's not so much a concern, it's more of a question. If you had a white professor or a white, doctoral candidate or something who went on a show and started talking about this, and you just replaced black with white, does that seem racist?
No, it doesn't.
In the context of talking about interracial marriage.
No, you know why? Because this entire rant is based on the oppressor-oppressed model. It's based on CRT, which is why if you flipped it, it would sound racist.
Right.
Because when you use the CRT oppressor-oppressed model, their whole argument is that it can't be racist because you have been oppressed and the oppressed can't be racist.
Okay, so what about the actual merit of what he's saying? What do you think about that?
Yeah, and so later we don't have to play the clip. Later he gets into Naomi Osaka. So
the Naomi Osaka thing doesn't make any sense because he basically posed the question: why isn't Naomi Osaka playing for Haiti?
For Haiti.
Did she grow up there?
No, but his point is that when you have one black parent, the child the child attributes their talents and their what's the word, like their loyalty to the non-black parent and the non-black culture. And so
and he's saying her father is basically the one responsible for
her father. He says her father was responsible for her talent, for her sportsmanship. He taught her how to play tennis. I don't know if that's true, but and then he thinks it's a total waste of talent and gift to have that person pledge their allegiance. That's the word I was looking for. Pledge their allegiance to the non-black parent and culture.
Right.
So he says that he's against interracial marriage because it has an overall negative effect on the black community.
Okay.
And what do I think of the merit of that? Don't show your text messages.
Someone's going to screenshot that. Oh God, what did they say?
No. The merit of that, I mean, that he goes into a realm that I disagree with. I think Killer Mike has some more viable views when it comes to interracial marriage.
Does appear in those text messages
because,
real quick. So let's see what he says about it.
Yeah, because he does talk about how
they probably came on the same boat with him and her. And I say
started like 22 minutes, right?
Yeah, I love that. I got to use that. What did you think of Nick Cannon's comments that white women are looked at as a success? You got those?
White women are looked at as success because in America, we see a white woman. I couldn't have you. My daddy couldn't have you. My granddaddy couldn't have you. I would get killed even looking at you. People, if they thought I whistled at you, they would murder me. So now, if I play for the NBA, I want them all. And I could afford them all. That's what they're thinking.
I think that's an old school mentality. We talk about changing narratives. I don't think that narrative is the same anymore. What do you think?
I think it's individual. Some cats is insecure, and you look at the way they move, it shows. You know what I mean? Some dudes still do feel like that. You know what I mean? You can see it. You can see it. And then some dudes just like to wild out, and they like whatever they like, and that's fine too. You know, my thing though is Dr. John Henrik Clarke talked about. I don't know. It was an African. I think it was. I don't know if it was an African leader or a nation. I think it may have been. It may have been even Gaddafi. I don't know who it was. But it was an African leader at some point that says, we're sending you out. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a darker nation. It might have been Nigeria or something. But they said, we're sending our boy off to college. We're sending you to go to get knowledge to come back to make this community better. We're not sending you to go court a white woman and bring a white woman back. And that's hard to hear when everything should be fair and equitable, right? But if I was a Jewish parent who was married to the faith and the culture, and I said that to my child, even though my child might get angry, I wouldn't get frowned upon, because I'm only trying to keep my ethnicity and my culture alive. It's a 10,000-year-old religion. Like, I can't let you break that because you want to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, he's right.
He's right.
He's right. Like, it's not that he's right, but that makes sense.
That makes sense. This is a different argument than Dr. Umar. I don't know if that's his name.
Yeah.
This is a different argument, and he's right. So then he goes on to say that his mom used to say to him, "Don't bring a white girl to my house."
Right.
It's not because the mom is racist against white people, but because she wants her family and her culture and her legacy to be preserved.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of value to that. I mean, that's why my mom always told me, she says, "Marry your own kind." And I would joke with her. I'd be like, "I don't have an own kind. Like, how am I going to find a dude that's half Korean, half Italian?"
Yeah. No, it's very weird given that, you know, there are little tiny specks of, not secrets, but things that I didn't know about my dad that, you know, either other family members tell me or he tell me. And one of the things was, I think he told me he dated a black girl in college, which I'm like, wow, like my dad, just because he's, you know, he's the softest spoken white guy ever. And he married a Salvadorian woman and he met in a nightclub. So who knows about like what his past was like if he's just like, you know, just kind of like a Don Juan or whatever. But my mom or my dad never said to me, you know, like, you know, you should probably date this type of person, date that type of person. My aunt would always tease me about, you know, bringing back a girl from El Salvador for me or whatever, which even still, being half Salvadorian, I don't think that marrying a Salvadorian woman would necessarily be of benefit or of detriment. Because, I mean, it's just, I have a type. My wife turned out to be like, listen to me. I'm prefacing this with the utmost adoration and love for you. But my wife typically isn't my type.
Right.
You know what I mean? But there's something about her aura that I absolutely love, and she's gorgeous too.
She is irresistible.
She's gorgeous. But she falls out of that type. So it's just, I almost see it as like, you know, my dad or that part of my family where we wouldn't necessarily bring home the person that society would expect us to bring back.
Right.
If that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah. But there's something about, so I think even interracial isn't even the right word, because what Killer Mike here is saying, and then I actually agree with him, is that the hardest part is not the different race, it's the different culture.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I'm American. My culture is American, and there are definitely sometimes my husband's Brazilian. He may be racially Japanese and Italian, like I'm Korean and Italian, but he's culturally Brazilian. So there are definitely some times where it's a little bit different. But having said that, though, there's a lot of things about Brazilian culture that he doesn't like, which is why he loves America, because he actually prefers American culture.
Listen to this. This is, and we'll wrap up soon, but listen to this. This is, oh God, I hope, let's see if I'm just looking at my tabs just to make sure nothing crazy is up there. Roman army, Roman goat. Okay, cool.
No
in
porn.
1967, when miscegenation laws were overturned in the United States, 3% of all newlyweds were married to someone of a different race or ethnicity. That's crazy. And I think those laws were dominant in maybe 7 southern states. It wasn't a nationwide law. But the famous case is Loving versus Virginia, which is a white man and a black woman got married in Virginia. Virginia said this marriage is illegal and threatened them with jail time. They brought it up to the Virginia Supreme Court, which upheld the ruling, but then they brought it to the Supreme Court. And it's a really great movie. There's a drama
called Loving.
Which is really good. Michael Shannon, awesome. Since then, intermarriage rates have steadily climbed. Yeah, they're not calling it interracial. They're calling it intermarriage. I don't know if that's a politically correct term for it by now. By 1980, the share of intermarried newlyweds had about doubled to 7%, and by 2015, the number had risen to 17%. So all told, more than 670,000 newlyweds in 2015 had recently entered into a marriage with someone of a different race or ethnicity. That's insane. And I don't know if that's a culture changing or if that has anything to do with, if those laws still existed, would the rate, I mean, obviously the numbers would be lower, but the rates in like western states, eastern states, northeastern states would probably climb.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. What does it say? Intermarriage varies by race and ethnicity. The share of recently married blacks with a spouse of a different race or ethnicity has more than tripled from 5% to 18%.
Right.
At the same time, intermarriage has ticked down among recently married Asians and reminded more or less of stable among Hispanic. Let me ask you a question, because this is anecdotal and from what I've heard from friends that, and I have one friend in particular who was dating a Korean girl, and her parents were extremely disapproving of the relationship. Extremely.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is a stereotype, but you hear that like Asians are
super racist.
Really super racist.
Not a stereotype.
Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, look at Japan and Korea are great examples. Japan has the strictest immigration laws on the planet. I believe they're the strictest, if not one of the strictest. All
of these homogeneous societies that really don't have any other cultures.
Yes,
or
they are extremely protective of their culture and their society, and
But living in America, though, that seems like that doesn't leave.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like they bring that over here.
They do. I mean, I joke all the time with my Korean cousin. He's from my mom's side, full-blooded Korean. We joke all the time how Koreans are super racist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just Koreans. It's East Asians, like Japanese too.
But it seems
a lot of Chinese as well.
It seems like people aren't really giving a shit about what their parents are saying because these numbers are just, going up and up and up as far as
I think it's because, the American-born Asians are obviously very different. It's like this is why it's so silly when people say that Americans are racist or that the U.S. is a racist country. Dude, you have not left the U.S. The U.S. is literally the least racist country in the world. And this is not just something objectively.
Yeah.
There's even been, I forgot the name of the book, but this woman even did years and years of research and proved that Americans and the U.S. are the least racist people on the planet. Like if you go around to different countries, go to Africa. They're racist of people who have slightly darker shades of skin than they do. I mean, racist probably isn't the term, prejudice, whatever, but it's nothing like it is here.
Yeah.
And so, Asians, it's not a stereotype. East Asians are pretty racist.
Yeah.
They're even racist of South Asians, like Asians who have darker skin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Filipino and Cambodian, like those are like the Mexicans of Asia.
It's like Italy and Sicily, right?
Yeah, maybe a little bit different.
Discriminatory, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm just trying to think of people who are who live in the same sort of country. And
like a lot of East Asians think that Cambodians and Filipinos are dumb.
Yeah. First girlfriend was Filipino.
Oh.
Maybe I've had it ingrained in me my whole life. My mom is Hispanic. My dad's white. This is probably the way that it is. First girlfriend. I didn't have a white girlfriend until Carly, really.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, my first girlfriend was Filipino. My second serious one after that, she was Cuban and white. And
Okay.
then I didn't. Yeah, and then like I was engaged before, whatever. But she was white. So
I had my first boyfriend was white. I dated a Venezuelan guy, kind of seriously. My ex is Indian.
it's all cultural though. Like, where did you?
Yeah.
I grew up in New York on Long Island, which is probably one of the most diverse places in the world.
Very.
You grew up where?
I grew up in South Georgia, not very diverse.
Not very. Well, which is why if your first boyfriend was white, it's not surprising.
So
but
you're either white or you're black. In
if
the
you
area,
were
and that's
raised in
it.
San Francisco, like let's say you lived in San Francisco for a while, it'd probably be.
It'd be different.
Yeah, it'd be different. But I mean, it's it's nature, it's your environment,
Right.
But it's also nurture. It's also you can probably be beat over the head while you're young about it. You're bringing either this type of person home or this type of person home, or it's recommended, subtly and unconsciously to kids, and they only think about this in one way.
Right.
The idea of interracial marriage, talking about it, I thought, okay, yeah, it's fine. I'm fine with it. But then looking at other people talk about it, I kind of understand why some people are against it. Like it makes sense to me in certain situations.
Yeah.
And from certain people's point of view.
Life will be a little bit harder, especially in the very beginning of your marriage. It will be harder if you marry somebody from a totally different culture or someone of a different race. That's the objective reality that people don't want to face, but it's true.
Subscribe, give us other topics to talk about. Otherwise, we will just continue trying to find cringe music videos from political independent journalists. And download Spotify, Apple,
share with your friends.
Apple Podcasts, share with your friends, share the video. And until next week, when are we going to start doing two of these a week?
I would love to start next week.
Okay. Well, it's all dependent on how Joel feels. Right, Joel? As he goes back to the mic.
Let's
Mike
get some
brings
redheaded stranger.
Coffee, and you bring tasty treats every
Done.
week.
Yeah.
So
Done,
I
my
love it.
friend.
I'm about it.
Okay, so we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.